long last, they are starting to show signs of rebellion. Long last. Should have happened long ago. It should have happened in 2008, when the Russian terrorist regime invaded Georgia. It should have happened in 2014, when they invaded Ukraine for the first time, and then annexed Crimea and destabilized Donbass. It should have happened 2 years ago, when this war started, more than 2 years ago in fact. And yet, my friends, it's better late than never. So we have to show the whole world that Putin is not omnipotent, that Putin cannot mobilize all of Russia, that Putin will not be able to win, because the Russian terrorist regime's elites are counting on the West losing interest, on the West having a low attention span, on the West starting to care about other things, less important things than the war in Europe, with an expansionist regime who has already made threats and promises of expanding this war beyond Ukraine, to Moldova, to the Baltic countries, to Poland. NATO countries, by the way. Poland and the Baltic countries, that is. Allow Russia to do whatever they want in Ukraine. Imagine a scenario where Russia decides to take a village in Estonia and say, oh, 90% of the people in this village are Russians. We have the right to do it. What's NATO going to do? Well, my friends, if appeasers and apologists such as Orban make their voice prevail, then NATO will do nothing. And after the first village, there will be a second one, and a third one, and then a city, a capital, all of Estonia, all of Latvia, all of Lithuania. And we'll have people on the other side of the world, ignorant people, say, oh, but we have no borders with Russia, let them take these countries. Let them do whatever the hell they want. As a certain politician has said in the past. We will not name any names of this individual, but I'm sure that the people who are politically savvy know who we are talking about. But we will name some other names, like Fico and Orban and Tucker Carlson, who supposedly went to Russia for freedom of speech. Except he did not ask a single legitimate question to Putin. He was there, simply stroking Putin's ego, shoe-shining him. Now, people could argue that he was scared for his life, but why even go there? Why go there with the pretense of enforcing freedom of speech, when all you're going to do is fill up your pockets with rubles? What other point was there? And in fact, it seems like Tucker Carlson was not paid enough. Because right after that little interview, he started trash-talking Putin on a few key points. Like, for example, the denazification idea. Tucker Carlson said it was the stupidest thing he's ever heard. If only he had said it straight in Putin's face. I mean, I thought that was what freedom of speech was, right? To be able to speak freely, unafraid of the consequences. So why did he not tell this to Putin? Why did he not interrupt Putin when he was mentioning denazification? Why did he not tell him, look, Mr. Putin, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard? Now that would have made a scoop. It would have been very interesting to see that on our television, right? Or on the computer these days. But my friends, we must not trust these individuals. They're not fighting for freedom of speech. They're not fighting for conservatism. Tucker Carlson, the conservative. Laughable. These individuals who claim that Russia needs to be left alone, that Ukraine is a step too far. Oh, that evil NATO expansion. Oh, how dare they. NATO is a voluntary organization. The only countries that are part of NATO are the ones who wished and who chose to join NATO. In fact, very often, those countries begged and demanded to join NATO, just to be protected from the Russian terrorist regime. But then we hear these apologists say, oh, but Russia was provoked. There was a treaty, you see, a treaty with Russia, where we promised them not to expand to the east. And what I usually like to ask these people is, What was this treaty called? They never know the answer because there was none. It never happened. Complete revisionist history. Even Mikhail Gorbachev, the man who ended the Soviet Union, their last dictator, who was in these discussions with the West about the expansion of NATO, about the Warsaw Pact, about the Soviet Union, he was interviewed himself. And he said that no one was cheated. The West promised not to expand into Soviet lands. The Soviet Union was no more. The Warsaw Pact was no more. Russia, in fact, this is the best part. Russia has accepted the sovereignty of all of those states who decided to join NATO. I guess somebody forgot what sovereignty truly means. My friends, sovereignty means you have a choice. You have a choice in terms of what you're going to do. And that choice does not entail crawling to Russia on your knees and begging them, can we pretty please join NATO? Can we pretty please join the EU? No. If Russia has accepted the sovereignty of Ukraine, if it has accepted the sovereignty of Poland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, Russia has no say, not now, not ever, over what those countries do or what organization they decide to join. It's as simple as that, my friends. All of the rest is mere distractions used by these Russophiles and by these apologists to try to excuse Russian aggression against Ukraine. But we need to know the truth. We need to know it so that we can tell it to everyone. And we can speak to the whole world. World, wake up!
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 More sanctions on Russia!
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 Seize Russian assets!
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 This conversation about the seizure of assets has been going on for a long time. Unfortunately, many people say it's a step too far. How though? We all see it very clearly. That Russia is ruled by criminals, by crooks. They've amassed all of that money by a crime. It's dirty money. This could be called the biggest anti-money laundering scheme in humanity. If we take that money away from the money they stole from the Russian people, from the Ukrainian people, from all the peoples they have ruled in the past, and we can give it to the people who need it the most. The Ukrainian people who are fighting for freedom, who are the bulwark of democracy and of the values of the West. To allow Ukraine to fall is to take the step many steps closer, to take the West many steps closer to its demise. We need to understand that. Every life of a Ukrainian saved today is a life of a Westerner saved in the future. A life that might be lost fighting against a more powerful and more brazen Russia. Why risk Western lives in the future if they can be saved by saving Ukraine? Especially considering the fact that this promise has been made already in the past. In 1994, the Budapest Memorandum, in which Ukraine gave up the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world in exchange for nothing more but the peace agreement with Russia. And what did the Ukrainian people get in return? Russia, a terrorist state, violated this agreement and has attacked Ukraine plenty of times and is now engaged in a full-scale war with Ukraine, where the only weapon they have not yet used because they're afraid of Western retaliation are their nuclear weapons. They've used every other weapon at their disposal. Laughably so, they have lost 1/3 of their fleet against a country with no fleet whatsoever. Now that is a good one. That's a good scoop, I'd say. And from the West, what do we hear from the West? Ukraine fatigue? Oh, but it costs money. Oh, but Ukraine is corrupt. Was Ukraine not corrupt when the Budapest Memorandum was signed? Would it not cost money back then to help Ukraine defend itself against Russia? So why then? Why was Ukraine encouraged? Why was Ukraine pushed into signing this agreement and giving up all of their nuclear weapons? So that in the end, we can hear excuses instead of legitimate, real help. All of the new people feel welcome to come here and add your voice to ours. People from all over the world have come here to us to send their own message also. Now I'd like to give word to one of our friends from Cardiff, from the Support Ukraine Cardiff group. Is that right? Come, my friend.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Hello London and London citizens and its guests. Please listen to me for a few minutes. I'm Makary from Kyiv, from Ukraine. Today is the 653rd day since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Every day, the Russian bomb Ukrainian cities and villages with missiles, bombs, artillery and drones. And day before yesterday, they attacked the beautiful city of Odessa on the shores of the Black Sea. As a result, we know about at least 21 dead and at least 75 wounded. And these are civilians. The Russians do not care where they launch their missiles. They terrorize the Ukrainian population every day, starting from February 24, 2022. This week, the Ukrainian documentary 20 Days in Mariupol won an Oscar. The first Oscar in the history of Ukraine. An AP team of Ukrainian journalists trapped in the besieged city of Mariupol struggled to continue their work documenting atrocities of the Russian invasion. As the only international reporters who remained in the city, they captured what later became defining images of the war. Dying children, mass graves, the bombing of a maternity hospital, and more. I highly recommend watching it and realizing what Russia is like. And turning to the topic of Mariupol. Yesterday, for the second year in a row, Ukrainians around the world are commemorating one of the biggest tragedies committed by Russians in recent years. They attacked drama theater in Mariupol on March 16, 2022. The strike killed between 600 and 1,100 civilians, but the true number is unknown. And today and yesterday, Ukrainians around the world are taken to the central square cities to tell about it, including me. The heart of Mariupol. Meet with friends for drama. Make a drama date. Go to a performance in a drama theater and choose the best seats on the ground floor. Such was our beautiful life. Drama featured Christmas trees, summer festivals and winter fairs. Parades of traditional Ukrainian clothes is in a Ukrainian city and special, each has its own. Events that will be remembered forever. The drama theater in Mariupol was, without exaggeration, the heart of the city. For the last time before the full-scale war, Mariupol residents also gathered near the drama theater. Then people raised yellow and blue flags to show the united and Ukrainian face of our city. Not much time will pass and only a bleeding wound will remain on this site of the most famous building in Mariupol. Exactly 2 years ago, on March 16, 2022, the Russians committed one of the biggest crimes against humanity, which shocked the whole world. The Russian army dropped 2 aerial bombs on a drama theater where women, elderly people and children were hiding from the shelling. Now the drama theater is a symbol of a crippled city and indescribable pain. The Russians did not stop the inscription children. After the invasion of the Russians, the people of Mariupol constantly came to the theater with the hope of evacuation. But the buses, which were supposed to take people from hell, did not arrive again and again, due to the shelling of the occupiers. And in addition, the building itself was constantly inhabited by civilians. Some lived in the bomb shelter that was in the drama theater. Some in the audience hall and dressing rooms. People tried to cook from leftover food, hide from shelling and waited for rescue. Near the children of the drama theater, the word "children" was written in huge letters. The people of Mariupol hoped that this would protect it from bombings. But the children did not stop the occupiers. On March 16, 2022, Russians dropped 2 aerial bombs on the building. Russian planes dropped 2 500 kilograms bombs on the theater. They fell next to each other and detonated almost simultaneously. Hundreds of people died under the rubble. I want to remind you that the war is not going on somewhere in Ukraine, but the war is going on here in Europe. And it is useless to hope that the Russians will stop in Ukraine. They will go further. And you can ignore all this for a long time. Do not notice the elephant in your room. But sooner or later, this elephant will grow up and become much bigger. And it will be too late to stop it. And the best way to prevent the Third World War is to help Ukraine now, in particular with weapons, medical equipment, medicine, volunteering, and money. Yes, the war in Ukraine continues, the biggest war since Second World War. Yes, our cities are shelled every day. Yes, Russia kills Ukrainians every day. Yes, we work hard. Yes, we try to live even during wartime. Yes, we keep fighting. Yes, we need the world's support. Yes, we need more weapons. Yes, negotiations with terrorists are impossible. And yes, we will win. I would like to call you Stand with Ukraine, but I changed my mind. So I call you Win with Ukraine. Because we only need victory. Victory over this infernal evil. Above evil called Russia and Russians. Thank you for your attention. And of course, thank you very much for your support. Дякую. Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Дякую.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much. You see, my friends, everybody can send our message. Everybody can stand here with us and do what's right. What's better for the future of not only Ukraine, not only Europe, but all of humanity. To be able to speak here is an honor. It's very important that we have this ability now, here, in this country where there is freedom of speech, where people remember the price at which this freedom of speech came, where people cherish it. Not in countries such as Russia, where they have a little wordplay in Russian. I will indulge in that, in this little mention, my friends. They say the word "демократия," but they change it to "гермократия," which is the word shit combined with democracy. And this is something that they do on a regular basis. No arguments, no defense, just pure ignorance. You know, oftentimes we have faced against many people who are supporting the Russian terrorist regime. And personally, I believe it's very important for us to be able to speak to these individuals head on, so that everybody who can see us interact can see who has the good points and who has the ignorance, who has the stupidity, who has the lack of decorum. We, my friends, need to be the ones who are able to speak well and to tell the whole world what's going on in a simple way, and if necessary, to go into detail about it. We need to know these details of this war, because people need to realize that to help Ukraine win is in the benefit of every person on earth. Now, if people want to ask why, that's fine. We can answer that question. And we need to be able to answer that question. Because if people stand for world peace, if people stand for nuclear demilitarization, then people stand with Ukraine. It's as simple as that. Because Ukraine has made a move for world peace. The biggest move out of any country on this planet in all of history of humanity. Not a single country has made the sacrifice for world peace that Ukrainian people have, to give up the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world in exchange of nothing more but a peace agreement with Russia, the main country that had the potential to invade, and the country that ended up invading us in the end. And all of this after what? After Ukraine had disassembled the majority of their bombers, the majority of their military equipment, after Ukraine had demilitarized, after Ukraine had given up their nuclear weapons, the biggest nuclear demilitarization in human history. And what did Ukraine get in return? Nothing. My friends, this involves everybody. Because if people want the many countries of this world to accumulate, to amass more and more and more nukes, and one day run the risk of blowing it all to smithereens, then sure, support Russia then. If you want humanity to die in a nuclear holocaust, go right ahead and join Putin. But if you want a future for humanity, a future that does not involve the extermination of mankind, a future of peace, of prosperity, of freedom, then Ukraine is your only option in this war. And standing aside and letting it sort itself out is not an option, my friends. That is always going to work in the benefit of Russia. Ukraine needs help. Ukraine can't beat Russia by itself. We have a smaller population. We have less industry. We have less wealth. It's impossible for us to beat Russia with no help. But if Ukraine still had those nuclear weapons, you can be damn sure that Russia would not dare attack us. But of course, if we want this president to succeed, the president that if you do not have nuclear weapons, you're nothing more than a victim. You're nothing more but somebody who will be victimized one day or another. If you want nuclear weapons to be the only assurance of peace anywhere, and to run this risk that one day one country gets an insane autocrat who presses the button, well then, we are on the right path to that disaster, to that cliff, to that abyss that we have been flirting with for so long, ever since Russia started their mindless expansions, ever since Russia started their nuclear saber rattling, this path has been getting closer and closer. Because my friends, we need to remember one thing above all. The likeliest possibility of Russia using nuclear weapons comes if the West does nothing to prevent Russia from expanding. Russia has proven that it will use every weapon at their disposal to win, no matter what's the cost, no matter what the consequences are, unless there will be consequences for their leaders, for their leadership, unless there is brute force on the other side, force that they cannot outmuscle. That is the only deterrent against Russia. Not diplomacy, not relations, not promises. Force, power, might makes right. That's how Russia sees the whole world. And they do not respect anything else. They do not accept anything else. That's just the country that they are. And they've been proving it through every single day that this war has been going on. How much more proof do people need? How much more blood do people need to see? As mentioned a while ago, the film 20 Days in Mariupol was a masterpiece. I watched it myself. I would recommend everybody to watch this film. It's a documentary of Russian atrocities in Ukraine. How people were not expecting to get bombed because they were just civilians. And how people have realized how Russia truly wages war, uncaring for the civilian population. In fact, it's a bonus for them. The more they shell civilians, the more fear they spread. The better it is for them, because they were expecting the Ukrainians would hand over their country to them. It did not happen. They were surprised. They were disappointed. And now they are ready to reorganize, to regroup, and to go for another try, another full-scale invasion of Ukraine. All Putin needs is to get this sham election out of the way, and for the West to step aside, remove the sanctions, allow Putin to amass some more rubles, and to buy some more tanks, and then to try again, and again, and again. What's after, you might ask? What is after Ukraine? Well, Moldova, of course. The Russians already have troops in Moldova. They always had their troops in Transnistria, ever since the Soviet Union collapsed. But do people speak about this? They do not. They do not want to speak of this. Because if we close our eyes, we will not see how terrifying the world is around us. If we stick our heads in the sand, surely the Russians will never be able to hurt us. Surely, if only we look the other way and pretend like the Russians are not planning to expand westwards, like they're not planning to destroy the Western civilization, like they're not planning to subvert the United Kingdom itself. A country with principles, with morals, with values that serve as a wall against this barbarism. But with every single individual who claims that this is a terrible place to live in, who claims that Russia didn't do anything wrong, who claims the UK needs to leave NATO and stop caring about the rest of the world, this wall forms a crack. There are many cracks at this point, my friends. A lot of people have lost hope in their culture, in their governments, in their democracy. But we must not lose that hope. Because as long as we have that power, the power of democracy, the power to change the government, we can change. But if we no longer have it, well, then what are we but slaves? Slaves to the powerful. How fitting. And that's exactly what Russia is aiming for. Stop Russia, stop the war.
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 Help Ukraine protect peace.
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 Arm Ukraine as you promised.
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 Once again, my friends, I would like to encourage everybody to watch the film 20 Days in Mariupol. It is shocking. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not for the faint of heart. But it's good that it is shocking. It's good that people will finally see the visceral reality of war. Because it would seem like people have forgotten. People no longer understand what we're playing with here. Channel 4 streaming, thank you. Channel 4 streaming. You can see the film 20 Days in Mariupol. Thank you very much. That's good. That's useful. Only for 30 days. Oh, hurry up, guys. Hurry up. Channel 4 streaming. 20 Days in Mariupol. Check it out. You know, only for a while, guys, so hurry up. You should definitely check it out. It's definitely worth it. It is definitively worth it. You know, personally, I am of the opinion that people need to see misery. They need to see what's going on so that they are able to avoid it. So that they're able to understand what they're playing with. These conversations about glorious wars, they have spread by people who have never experienced war, or by the propagandists. We need to avoid war as much as possible, but when that war reaches us, we need to be able to defend ourselves. Because, my friends, there are things worse than war. It's when you are incapable to defend yourself, incapable to fight for your existence, incapable to assert your life on this earth. Then, it's no longer a war, but instead it's an extermination. That is the option that Ukrainian people have. War or extermination. Let everybody understand this. Ukrainians never had the option of peace. That option was never on the table. It would either be complete submission to Russia, and then they would do another extermination, just like during the Soviet Union, when they have perpetrated the Holodomor, that killed 10 million Ukrainian people via man-made starvation. Indeed. And such things could happen again. Many, many times. Similar things to the Cultural Revolution in China. Similar things to the Great Leap Forward. The question is, do we want to see the Chinese Communist Party as the pinnacle, as something to strive for, or do we want to see a better world? We have Mao Zedong, Stalin, Hitler on one hand, and we have freedom on the other. Individuals, corrupt individuals, who are fine with exterminating millions for their personal gain, or a better future in which we are the ones who decide what happens in the world. At this moment, my friends, people have this power in this country, in the free world. They have the ability to vote, they have the ability to choose. But this ability is slipping through their fingers with every single advantage that Russia gains, with every single day that this war continues. This war needs to stop. And the only way to stop it is to stop the Russian terrorist regime. There are no other ways. The Russians have made sure of that. They have made sure to remove every single other option from the table. And now, to leave us, the Ukrainian people, with a choice of defending ourselves or to be exterminated. It's a good thing The people here do not have to make such a terrible choice. It's a good thing. However, my friends, we cannot expect freedom and safety to be eternal. These are ephemeral privileges that certain countries on this planet have amassed throughout millennia of history. And these privileges can be lost like that in a millisecond of carelessness, where each country decides that all of a sudden, although they are not self-sufficient, suddenly they do not care about anything that happens beyond their borders. And that's the truly funny part. This country, just like every country in Europe and vast majority of countries in the world, is not self-sufficient. Almost no countries are self-sufficient. So we are bound to each other, bound to see what happens in the rest of the world, and to influence this world to be better, to be freer, to be more peaceful. The Ukrainians have made the choice for peace, and they gave up the third biggest nuclear arsenal in the world in exchange for peace promises. But now, my friends, that promise was betrayed by the Russian terrorist regime. In fact, this promise was betrayed all the way back in 2014. And now we have another choice, whether we are going to hold the Russian terrorist regime accountable, or we're going to allow them to get away scot-free with every single one of their war crimes. The choice is ours. The choice is yours. But we need to make sure that we think about this choice, because if we choose unwisely, we will have a far worse situation than Hitler.